and breaking down each part of the newly translated Order of Christian Initiation of Adults, reviewing the content and the important elements of each section. Today we're going to be looking at the Rite of Election, but I've split the Rite of Election into two parts, Part A and Part B. Part A is the explanation of what the rite is and what each element is about, and Part B is a walkthrough through the actual rite itself. So let's start with Part A, which will be numbers 118 through 128. Number 118 reminds us that the catechumenate is now coming to an end as we go through this rite of election, and it identifies the catechumenate as a long period of formation of mind and heart. So it's important to take that into consideration. This moment doesn't come after a certain number of classes, but instead it comes after learning accompaniment and journeying through this formation together. What is required at this point is an enlightened faith and a considered intention to receive the sacrament. So this is someone stepping up and saying, I feel it, I feel this change, I feel God's presence, and I'm ready to step forward to complete my sacraments. And it's really a discernment moment where they really go through this with you. After the enrollment, or the Rite of Election, they will be encouraged to follow Christ with greater generosity. And so it's leading them into a new phase where they are going to be very focused on their journey with Christ through the sacraments. 119 reminds us that it usually takes place at the beginning of Lent. After hearing the testimony of godparents and the catechists confirm their intention, the intention of the catechumen, and the church discerns their state of readiness, that they are truly prepared to enter into this final stage before receiving their sacraments. And so it's a process, okay? It's not just sitting with a checklist, but it's talking to the godparents and the sponsors, talking with the catechist to see where they are and if they are indeed ready to proceed. Election is defined in number 119 as the admission founded on election by God. That means that we believe that they are chosen by God in order to step forward to receive their sacraments. And then the word enrollment is used because they do sign the book and they enroll into the order of the catechumenate. They're accepted into that order. They're accepted into the state of readiness for sacraments. And so this being enrolled through the book of the elect is going to play a big part in what we call them and how we look at them and how they look at themselves. Number 120, they are questioned before election. There should be another interview, informal or formal, however each parish wishes to proceed. But there should be another time of questioning in an interview status where we talk about their conversion of mind and heart and their morals. Has their morality, the way that they look at making decisions in their life, has that changed? That they have sufficient knowledge of Christian doctrine. Notice it doesn't say that they have complete knowledge, but that they have sufficient enough that, one, they are encouraged to go forward and continue learning, but two, that they know what they're getting into. They know what the Catholic Church is about, and so they're ready to step forward. And then finally, we look for a sense of faith and a sense of clarity, that they're no longer saying, I think I'm ready, I think this is what I want, but they're firm in their decision. They clearly see this is what they want, and this is what they feel called to go forward with. So it is a time of discernment again. Just like it was at the very beginning with the pre-catechumenate. To enter the catechumenate, to leave the catechumenate is another time of discernment. What is happening in their life? How are they feeling about their faith journey? Because election is the hinge of the whole catechumenate, and that's a quote from number 120. Election is the hinge of the whole catechumenate, because once they enter election, they're in that final state. They're in at the intense moment of preparation. Number 121 tells us that admission to election begins with the bishop, that he is the ordinary of election, or he can delegate someone. So if a parish cannot attend the rite of election with the bishop, then they do need to ask for that ability to be a delegate, to do it on their own at their parish. Everyone should render judgment on the progress and readiness of these catechumens, and that includes the bishop, the clergy involved, the catechists involved, the godparents, and the community. This isn't an automatic step. This is something that happens once everyone together discerns this is happening for the right reasons at the right time. Number 122 talks about a discussion held before the rite. Again, it may even include the catechumens themselves. They can be a part of the discussion and the discernment. There's nothing that says they can. In fact, it says here that it would be very good for them to be a part, of that discussion. So 122 allows them to also take part. Number 122. 123 talks about the godparents, and this is a moment that they publicly take their place as the ones who are accompany, give testimony for them, and then walk with them for the rest of their life. And that's really important. So if they've had parish sponsors up to this point, this is where the godparents now get their actual title of godparent. And it could be the same people that were sponsors previously, or this could be different people that are now named godparent. But whatever they decide, this is the official moment. So the godparents do need to be present for the rite of election. Number 124 reminds us that from the point of this rite on, they are now called elect. They are no longer catechumens, but they are the elect of God. They are co-petitioners. They are petitioning with God to receive these sacraments so that they can be enlightened by their baptism. And so this is a pivotal moment in the process. Number 125 reminds us that it is the bishops or whoever celebrating, it is their place to, one, explain what election is to them and to all gathered. To two, proclaim the judgment of the church, that they have been judged ready to take this step. To hear their judgment if it's appropriate. If there's, something, if you only have 2 or 3 elect and you're doing this in the parish and you want them to be able to speak for themselves, that you're able to do that. And the celebrant would listen to them. And then finally, to explain to everyone that we are now entering into Lent, and this is now for all of us to prepare for the Paschal solemnities, not just the catechumens. Number 26 tells us that the rite of election should be the first Sunday of Lent. This is one of the few places where we are actually told a date. Okay, all the other, the rite of entrance can be done whenever people are ready. But really, this is the first time we hear the appropriate time would be that first Sunday of Lent, and that it coincides with the whole Lenten season, concluding with the Easter Vigil. For pastoral reasons, you can do it in another time period, but you also have to celebrate the same number of weeks. So you still have to do the 5 weeks. You have to do that last week of preparation into Holy Week, quote unquote, because it won't be Holy Week, it'll be a different time. But you still celebrate the scrutinies, you still celebrate the handing on, everything in the same time period. You can't decide, we're going to do a second rite of election on June 1st, and they're going to be brought into the church on June 15th. You can't do that. You have to kind of mimic that Lenten season. And we're just asked not to do any of the scrutinies or the reception of the sacraments on a solemnity of the church. So you really have to look at your church calendar. Number 127 tells us that this should be done either in a cathedral or a parish church. The rite of election should not be done in any other learning institution, any small chapel of a high school, or anything like that. It's always done at a parish church or in the cathedral, or what we use for the cathedral, which in our case would be using it at St. Charles. Number 28 then finally tells us that on a Sunday after the homily is usually when it would take place, or after a liturgy of the word. So you could have the rite of election. We have the rite of election, for example, on a Saturday. So we have just a liturgy of the word. It's not a full mass. If you're doing it at a parish, if you receive permission to do it at a parish, you can do it on a Sunday, as long as it's not a solemnity. You can do it on a Sunday as part of a regular mass. Or it can be any time during the beginning of Lent, or at a time that's appropriate. Normally we try to use the readings of the first Sunday of Lent, if it's a liturgy of the word. Those are the most appropriate. You can also use, and this is listed in the rites, you can also use the Mass of Friday of the 4th week of Lent, is also appropriate. And then we end with the dismissal. In episode 9b, I will go through the exact rite, step by step, what is to happen.